explorers, and welcome to the Cozy News Corner, where we talk about open source news. And we're going to start with a couple of quick ones. We have the vulnerability of the Ubuntu kernel, local privilege escalation, and denial of service. So we need to upgrade. And next up, we have the Python cryptography, which has a critical ECC attack fix. So that's also something we need to update. And NodeJS has multiple vulnerabilities affecting security risks. And we get more and more of these kind of things, and we have a news about that later. And we also have snapd local escalation fix. And I'm pretty fed up with snap at all. So I'm actually thinking about moving from Ubuntu over to Debian, just so I don't have snaps, because they take up extra space, they are annoying and sandboxed in a bad way. So I actually prefer Flatpaks at the moment. So Debian with Flatpaks should be a pretty good mix, but I'm looking into it, but switching is a pain. And now over to some news. First off, this was something that I got in my email. 450 supporters of the FFmpeg, which is the free software, I'm not really remembering, but Free Software Foundation Europe. And their payment provider just canceled on them. They didn't want to use them anymore, or they didn't want them to be used. And the annoying part is that this could have been solved so easily. They just didn't want to, pretty much. Here's a quote. Over the past few months, a former payment provider, Nexi, SPA, requested access to private data, which we understood to be specifically usernames and passwords of our supporters. And that is just annoying, that you request something that you can't have. That is just something that you should never ask for. Usernames, why would you need that? Passwords, why would you need that? Those are only local credentials, right? So more than 450 current FSE supporters who use automatic renewal on their credit card or debit card has been affected, because now they are not debited anymore. So obviously there is people that has forgotten, and for them it's a gain, I guess. But for other people that really want to support free and open source, they got to go through the annoying thing to remember that it is cancelled and then sign up again. So they will lose subscribers. And another quote here: the decision that Nexi has made are incomprehensible to us. Over the last months, as a part of a security audit that Nexi claimed to be conducting, we have provided them with large amounts of FSFE's financial documentation, which even included private information of some of our executive staff. We have answered all of their questions, but we have drawn the line when it comes to private companies like Nexi demanding access to sensitive information and private data of our supporters. So good riddance that they are not using them anymore. Seems like a really bad company asking for things that are not allowed by GDPR, for instance, in Europe. So you are breaking a law, pretty much. So just stop. Next, we have Debian, a project lead election is on the way. So now they are trying to figure out who will lead the project going forward. And they had a nomination period that ended the 13th of March. And now they have a campaign period for a couple of weeks, but they only have one candidate. And after that, we will vote on this one candidate. So it looks like, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, Shurlevski, Timothy Sharadan will be the next leader of the Debian project. Next we have ageless Linux that launches with an age challenge verification rules for operating systems. So we have this age thing going on again, and a lot of different people are going into the debate having an opinion. And ageless Linux has a very clear opinion. You should never ask for this information. So users that install Debian can then run a script that rebrand this version of Debian to an ageless Linux, and this will apply a couple of different changes reflecting the project's legal position. So it's a standard Debian 13 installation, Trixie, and then you run the script and you will get this statement. Ageless Linux is registered operating system under the definition established by the California Digital Age Assurance Act, and we are in full, knowingly, and international non-compliance with the age verification requirements of this law. A Debian-based net install ISO and a pre-built image for Milk V Duo S single board computers will also come later on in 2026, and they're also looking at the Flatpak based application repository for this ageless store. And this bill, or these kind of bills where you want to collect sensitive information about people under age, which is also going against the COPPA law, that pretty much requires that you are not storing sensitive information about people that are underaged. Of course, the company behind all this that lobbies hard for these laws to be in Congress is Meta, of course. So they are probably behind most of this and working hard to get us aged online. Next up, we have Orion browser. It's not a Firefox fork, and it's in Linux public beta. So one of those tools here, it's Orion is built fully on WebKit, and it's not a Chrome derivative, it's not a Firefox fork, and it's not open source software. We covered the application because it's available on Linux, they say. So a new Kagi Orion browser arouse, and I'm using Kagi as a search engine. I'm not sure, and I'm not using Kagi Sync. I'm not sure that I would go to Kagi browser, but it might be better and more privacy focused than a Chromium browser, but as it's not open source, I have my misgivings. Next up, we have the news that Google says that developer verification makes Android safer, and Critic says that it makes it more closed. So Google is working hard to verify each developer on the Android system. It doesn't really matter if you are using F-Droid or any other platform to load your APKs to the platform, because Google wants to verify everyone that writes an application, so they have more focus on the environment and can say, okay, this developer are allowed to run applications on our system, that developer does not. And for instance, I'm not allowed to run it because, of course, again, they wanted a lot of things a lot of documentation that I couldn't send them due to EU laws. So I pretty much was shut out. Of course, that's on my part. I would never send that kind of sensitive information to the other side of the world. So starting on September 2026, in certain regions, any app installed on a verified Android device will need to come from a developer who has gone through the Google's new verification process. And there is other Android installations where you have unlocked and removed all Google softwares, and those will still, of course, work. So it's only those devices that have been locked by Google to be proprietary that you can't install APKs from any source anymore. Organizations are additionally required to provide a DUNS number, a business identifier issued by Dun and Bradstreet that they can take up to 30 business days to obtain. And in Europe, you need to also send in an ID. So they have also written here, there are 2 account tiers on offer, a full distribution account with one-time $25 fee. I think I paid $50 when I actually signed up many years ago. And a free limited distribution account for student and hobbyist that skips the government ID requirement. So they are requiring that you're sending in your government assigned ID, and that is just something I can't do. Next up, we have FFmpeg 8.1 that brings Vulkan and compute codecs to a new decoder support. So it has expanded support for Vulkan and compute-based codecs. It has added new decoding capabilities, including experimental support for XHEAAC and MPS 212 and FFmpeg H decoding via the MPH deck library. And we also have support for the Rockchip H264 and HEVC hardware encoding support. So a lot of abbreviations there. Finally, we have also updates the JPEG XS support, including a parser and encoding, decoding with the libsvt JPEG XS, as well as a raw bit stream muxer and demuxer for the format. So a lot of new format and improvements for performance in this release. Next, we have Zamba, which has a new release for 24.0. And this has a lot of new authentication things for it. So we have authentication information for audit. We have VFS stream attributes that can hold larger streams. We have support for remote password management through Kerberos and Keystore and so on. We also have MSDS keylink validation, Kerberos PK init SID extension, a new AIEO AIO rate limit VFS module, and we have more support for FS crypt support for the VFS new Ceph module. And I haven't seen this before, but it actually gives you the capability to have a mixed set of encrypted and unencrypted directories in Ceph. So that could be really interesting to look into. And then we have domain encryption types that change to EIS by default. Next we have Gnome 50 Tokyo. And in this disk desk environment release, the big thing is that they have now completely removed X11 and goes all the way in on Wayland. And Debian has already switched over to Debian in Gnome. And I think that Debian, Wayland started its development back in 2008, so they have been working on it for a long time. But X is very old and has so many bug fixes already baked into it, so it's very stable. And getting to that parity in both the amount of different use cases and also being as stable as X will take time, of course. So they started in 2008. Debian got a pretty stable release 2019, so they have been running over 6 years with Wayland, so they have gotten it pretty great in Debian. but Ubuntu had a bunch of problems implementing Wayland, so they have not gotten it to work until 2021, and I'm pretty sure that it's not the default in Ubuntu. I checked in my system and it's not running in my system, so I'm still running X11, but as I'm thinking about switching over to Debian, I might be going Wayland soon. And then in this Gnome 50, we also enhanced the performance of different NVIDIA graphics drivers, which is really nice. And the Epiphany Gnome web browser has received a new option to hide cookie banners, because those they don't really add anything anymore. People already know that if you are on a site and you log into the site, they will store information about you. There is so few sites on the internet these days that doesn't need to have a cookie, that it's not even interesting to know if you are storing cookies or not, because everyone does it. Next we have Blender 5.1, an open source 3D graphic software, and it has added hardware ray tracing enablement for AMD GPUs. It has a new opening windows without decorations on Wayland, so a new interface design that doesn't have the extra bar. And for VR, it has revamped the support for arc teleportation, ray drawing, and functionality. So better support for VR games. And next up we have Mangaro Linux that goes on strike and threatens to fork the project. And there is a lot of talk here, maybe overblown, maybe not. But the Mangaro team has been going, one of the team members called Aragon, or have going by that handle, published a manifesto version 2 on the official Mangaro forum, and the post lays out detailed restructuring plan for the project signed by 19 team members, including developers, community managers, monitors, and company technical leads. And the priority of the, this is a quote, the priority of the project leadership do not align with those of the developers and community. The current leadership's goal is to turn Mangaro into a successful business, and thus far these attempts have mostly failed. So under this new manifesto and proposal, they propose that the non-profit should get full use of the Mangaro trademark going by 2029, and they want the company to be willing to hand over the trademark and ownership to the non-profit for a sum of €1. So a very small amount. The team has also laid out that they were, if they were ignored, they had a resolve section in the manifesto that says that they would go through 3 stages: waiting for a reply, striking and going public, and then finally forking and leaving. And they have already jumped to the last part of that. And one of the old-timers, Stephanie Captani, old-timers when it comes to Mangaro, said that, to be honest, I feel that I'm having flashbacks because we have already had these discussions or storms in the past, and we always come out stronger, and we will come out stronger this time too. So maybe this is just a part of that community to be vehemently against something, speaking up and then finding a way forward, or maybe we will have a fork later on. Then we have a really crazy news here. AI companies has put in $12 million to an open source security to fix the problems that their tool created. So the funding will be managed by the Alpha Omega and Open Source Security Foundation, and will be divvied out to different developers that has a problem with a lot of pull requests coming in. And we have already heard that curl has had so many pull requests and different change requests and issues reported that had to turn off their program for bug reporting, or else they would be swamped in these kind of changes. So in order to keep both open source secure and to handle the big demand with people sending in so much slop to these poor developers, they have gotten some money now. And this money has been sent in by Anthropic, AWS, Google, Google DeepMind, GitHub, Microsoft, and OpenAI. So pretty much all the pretenders to be, the contenders to be working with this. Everyone but X and Grok, of course. And one of the founders of the Linux Foundation, a fellow here, Greg Conan Hartman of the Linux Foundation fellow and Linux kernel maintainer, has this to say. Grant funding alone is not going to help solve the problem that AI tools are causing today on open source security teams. OpenSSF has the active resources needed to support numerous projects that will help these overworked maintainers with the triage and processing of the increased AI generated security reports that they are currently receiving. So hopefully this will alleviate some of this problem. Next up, we have systemd that brings age verifications to Linux. Almost, because it's not really that big of a deal. The thing that they have added now is that they have a record for the same place where you have a record where you set your real name, your email address, and your location. Never done that, but there is a place to set that, and then you can optionally set a full date of the age of this person. So you set the full date of when they were born, and this can only be set by the administrator and not the users themselves, and will probably not mean anything because it's not the system's age, it's the user's age. So it's so wrong. And Leonard Poethin, the creator of systemd, says an optional field in the user DB JSON object, it's just a policy engine, not an API for apps. We just define the field so that the standardized if people, if they want to store data there, it's entirely optional. So the quote was pretty strange, but he pretty much says that this will not do anything. It will not help in any way. And then we have a big win for open source in Germany. So Germany has said that they will not allow any Microsoft or proprietary formats anymore in their processing. So the Deutschland stack names the ODF, that's Open Document Format, and PDF UA as the only permitted document formats for German public administrators. So no doc, no PPT, no XLS. And the reason behind this is not that hard to understand. It's this vendor lock-in that they want to work against. And speaking on the subject, Florian Elfberger, executive director of the Document Foundation, has stated that this is not a recommendation or a preference, it's a mandate. Germany's decision to anchor ODF at the heart of its national sovereign stack confirms that they have what we have argued for years. Open, vendor-neutral document formats are not a niche concern for technology specialists and free software advocates. They are a foundational infrastructure for democratic, interoperable, and sovereign public administrators. So, Germany pretty much says, no, we have enough. Now we'll use open formats going forward. And then we have a particularly strange Linux distro called Anti-X. And this is the people that doesn't really like systemd. So this is a systemd free Linux distro based on Debian 13 Trixie. And you can choose by run it, or you can use sysvinit, dinit, s6rc, or s666 init systems. And a full edition of this Debian the packaging is about 2 gigabytes, but you can have a smaller core version that is about 660 megabytes. And that was all the news for this week. I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you learned something today. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you have any comments or suggestions, leave those in the comment section down below. And I really want to